This morning, SpaceX went public. The IPO was priced at $135 a share. It opened at $150. Within minutes, it crossed $160, pushing SpaceX past a $2 trillion market cap. And somewhere in the middle of all that, Elon Musk's net worth crossed $1 trillion. On the day SpaceX went public, Elon Musk may have just become the first trillionaire in human history. We did the full math on this IPO 5 days ago. We told you exactly what the 30% retail allocation actually means, 1.26% of the company. Today, that math met the real market, and the real market just did something nobody, not even the most bullish analysts, fully priced in. Here's what actually happened this morning and what it means for everyone holding SpaceX right now. Let's start with the numbers, because they matter more than the headlines. SpaceX priced its IPO at $135 a share last night. That was already a historic number. The largest IPO in stock market history, $75 billion raised, a $1.77 trillion valuation before a single share traded publicly. This morning, when trading actually opened, the stock didn't open at $135. It opened at $150. That's a 13% pop in the first trade alone, before retail investors even had a chance to react. For context, most major IPOs pop somewhere between 10 and 20% on day one. A 13% open is right in line with what you'd expect for a deal with 2 times oversubscription. It's not crazy, it's not modest, it's exactly what the textbook would predict for a deal this hot. But SpaceX didn't stop at $150. Within minutes, the stock pushed past $160. At $160 a share, with roughly 13.1 billion total shares outstanding, SpaceX's market cap crossed $2 trillion. $2 trillion on day one, before most of the world had even had breakfast. To put that number in context, only 5 other US companies have ever reached a $2 trillion market cap: NVIDIA, Apple, Alphabet, Microsoft, and Amazon. That's it. That's the entire list. 5 companies built over decades with years of public trading history, profitability, and earnings reports behind them. SpaceX just became the 6th company in history to cross $2 trillion, and it did it on its very first day as a public company, in the first few minutes of trading. Let's also talk about what was happening around it. The broader market was up. The S&P 500 rose about 0.4% this morning, which means this wasn't SpaceX rising while everything else fell. The whole market had a tailwind. But Tesla, Elon Musk's other major company, was actually down about 1.5% this morning. Some analysts are reading that as money rotating out of Tesla and into SPCX on day one. Whether that's a real pattern or just noise, we'll know more in the coming days. The trillionaire moment. Now here's the part that's going to be in every headline today, on every financial network, in every newspaper tomorrow morning. Elon Musk holds roughly 42% of SpaceX and controls 82.4% of the voting power. We covered this in detail in our last video. It's the reason SpaceX is technically a controlled company even after going public. Public shareholders own shares, but Musk controls the decisions. When SPCX crossed $160 a share, Elon Musk's 42% stake in SpaceX alone became worth more than $1 trillion. Just that stake, just SpaceX, not counting anything else he owns. Combined with his other holdings, Tesla, XAI, Solar City-related assets, and the rest of his portfolio, reports this morning suggest Elon Musk's total net worth has crossed $1 trillion for the first time in history. If that holds through the day, Elon Musk would be the first person in human history to reach a net worth of $1 trillion. Let that sit for a second. Not a billionaire, not 10 billionaires worth of wealth combined. One single human being worth more than the entire annual GDP of countries like Spain, the Netherlands, or Saudi Arabia. More than the combined net worth of the next several richest people on Earth combined, depending on which list you look at. And it happened this morning, while most of the world was asleep. While we were literally making this video. There's something worth thinking about here. Reportedly, Musk himself said something remarkable at the opening bell ceremony this morning. He reflected on how, years ago, he gave SpaceX less than a 10% chance of even surviving as a company. Today, that same company just became one of the 6 most valuable companies that has ever existed on a stock exchange. That's not just a financial story, that's one of the most dramatic reversals of fortune in business history, playing out in real time, on a Friday morning, while regular people are deciding whether to buy or sell based on a number on their phone screen. What this means for the 1.26%. Now let's bring this back to you, because the Trillionaire story is interesting, but it's not your story. Your story is the 1.26%. In our last video, we broke down exactly what the 30% retail allocation actually meant. SpaceX is only selling 4.2% of the company. Retail gets up to 30% of that 4.2%, which works out to roughly 1.26% of SpaceX total for every retail investor combined worldwide. If you got an allocation at $135 and the stock opened at $150 and pushed past $160, here's what that means in real numbers. A $5,000 allocation at $135 buys you roughly 37 shares. At $150, those 37 shares are worth $5,550. That's a $550 gain in the first few minutes of trading, an 11% return before you've even finished your coffee. At $160, those same 37 shares are worth $5,920. A $920 gain, almost 18% in one morning. This is exactly the scenario we talked about last time. We said the stock could open at $170 on day one as one possible outcome. It opened at $150 and pushed past $160, not quite $170, but remarkably close to the bullish case we outlined 5 days ago. But remember what else we said in that video. Most massive, overhyped IPOs give back their day one gains within the first 90 days. Uber opened with a pop and fell to $26 within 18 months. Lyft popped and eventually fell to $14, never recovering its IPO price. Rivian opened above $100 and is now down 84% from that price. Every single one of those companies had a morning like this morning. Excited employees, ringing bells, headlines about record valuations, early investors checking their portfolios every 5 minutes. The question isn't whether you're up right now. Almost everyone who got an allocation is up right now. The question is whether you're still holding and still up in September. That's the real test. The MSCI story is now live. Here's the part that connects everything we've talked about, last video and this one, to what happens next. On June 9th, MSCI confirmed it will apply early inclusion rules to SPCX. The NASDAQ 100 fast entry rule means SPCX could join the index within 15 trading days, somewhere around late June or early July. CRSP-tracked funds like VTI and VUG could add it in as little as 5 trading days from now. The estimate is $22 to $27 billion in forced buying from index funds that have no choice but to purchase SPCX, regardless of price, regardless of valuation, regardless of whether the fund manager personally thinks it's a good investment. Here's why this morning's pop matters for that story specifically. The higher SPCX trades right now, the larger its weighting will be when it gets added to these indexes. A bigger weighting means even more forced buying from passive funds when inclusion happens. In other words, this morning's surge to $160 isn't just a one-day story for people checking their portfolios. It's setting the baseline valuation for billions of dollars of mechanical, automatic buying that hasn't even started yet. The S&P 500 still said no to fast-track inclusion. SpaceX's $4.94 billion net loss in 2025 means no S&P 500 inclusion until at least 2027 under current rules. But the NASDAQ 100 and CRSP-tracked funds don't run a profitability test. They care about market cap and float. And SpaceX just got a lot bigger, a lot faster than almost anyone, including the most bullish analysts, expected going into this morning. So here's where we are, with the market still open. SpaceX opened at $150, pushed past $160, crossed $2 trillion in market cap within minutes. And somewhere in the chaos of this morning, Elon Musk may have become the first trillionaire in human history. If you're holding SPCX from your IPO allocation, you're up significantly this morning. Genuinely, congratulations. That's a great morning. But remember the two things we've now covered across two videos, back to back. You own roughly 1.26% of this company between all retail investors combined. That hasn't changed just because the price went up. And the lockup cliff in September is when the other 95.8% of the company, the part Elon Musk and early insiders hold, gets to start selling for the first time. The market just handed you the best possible version of day one. Pop, headlines, trillionaire stories, the works. What happens between now and September is the real story. And it's the story almost nobody else is going to track properly. We're tracking all of it. The MSCI inclusion date over the next few weeks. The lockup cliff in September. The first earnings report. Every single number Goldman Sachs projected between now and 2030. We'll check each one as it comes in. This is SPCXLY. Subscribe if you want the math, not the headlines. I'll see you for the next one. Once the closing bell rings in about 45 minutes and we find out how day one of the biggest IPO in history actually ended.